The chandelier in the Grand Ballroom cost more than my truck. I stood there, clipboard in hand, watching the wedding planner adjust flower arrangements that would never be seen by guests who would never come. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was about to marry a woman who specialized in managing other people's images while completely destroying mine. The centerpieces need to be exactly 18 inches apart. Lila, our wedding planner, chirped with the enthusiasm of someone who hadn't received the memo yet. Your bride was very specific about the spacing. My bride. Right. The woman who'd been dodging my calls for 3 days and responding to my texts with single-word answers. The woman who claimed she was too busy with work to finalize our honeymoon plans, but somehow had time to post Instagram stories from restaurants I'd never been to. My phone buzzed. A text from Kara. Can't do this marriage. Sorry. That was it. 22 months of planning. Deposits on everything from the photographer to the 7-tier cake. And she summed up our relationship with a text shorter than a grocery list. Actually, Lila, I said, setting down the clipboard with deliberate calm, cancel everything. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, concern, then the dawning horror of someone realizing their commission just evaporated. Cancel? But the wedding is tomorrow. The flowers alone? Bill me for the cancellation fees. All of them. I pulled out my wallet and handed her my business card. Jake Morrison, Morrison Classic Restorations. I restore vintage cars for a living, so I know about salvaging things that seem beyond repair. This isn't one of those times. The venue suddenly felt cavernous, every echo of my footsteps amplifying the emptiness. I'd worked double shifts for months to afford this place. The Grand Metropolitan, a restored 1920s hotel that Kara insisted was the only acceptable venue for someone in my position. Her position being junior partner at Hartwell & Associates, the city's most prestigious public relations firm. Outside, the October air bit through my jacket. I sat in my truck for a moment, watching well-dressed couples walk into the hotel's restaurant. Happy people celebrating things worth celebrating. My phone showed 17 missed calls from various vendors, but none from the woman who was supposed to become my wife in 18 hours. Here's what I knew about my ex-fiancée. She never did anything without a plan. Kara didn't make impulsive decisions. She made calculated moves, each one designed to advance her position on some invisible chessboard where I'd apparently been nothing more than a pawn. I opened the Find My Phone app. We'd shared locations years ago during a camping trip, back when she pretended to enjoy things like hiking and s'mores. She'd never turned it off, probably forgot it existed. The little blue dot showed her at the Meridian Hotel, 15 minutes across town. The Meridian was where she'd told me she was having drinks with clients last Tuesday and Thursday, and the previous weekend when she'd canceled our dinner plans. I drove there with the windows down, letting the cold air clear my head. The parking garage was dimly lit, filled with luxury cars that cost more than most people's annual salaries. I found her silver BMW on the 3rd level, parked next to a black Tesla with vanity plates reading Dean O., Dean Oliver. Her ex-boyfriend from college, now some hotshot tech entrepreneur who'd moved back to town 6 months ago. Kara had mentioned running into him at networking events. Always casual, always dismissive. Just business, she'd say. He's married now anyway. I took photos of the cars, noting the timestamps. Then I waited. They emerged 47 minutes later, his hand on the small of her back as they walked to their cars. She was wearing the red dress I'd bought her for her birthday, the one she claimed was too fancy for anywhere we'd go. Apparently it was perfect for wherever they went. I snapped more photos, my hand steady despite the rage building in my chest. Dean kissed her goodbye. Not a friendly peck, but the kind of kiss that suggested this wasn't their first rendezvous. She melted into him like butter on hot pavement. When they drove away in opposite directions, I sat in the silence of the parking garage and made a decision. Kara wanted to play games? Fine, but she'd picked the wrong opponent. I drove home to the house we'd shared for 2 years, the modest 3-bedroom in Riverside that she'd always called temporary. Her clothes were gone from the closet, her toiletries cleared from the bathroom. The only trace of her remaining was a stack of wedding RSVPs on the kitchen counter and a note propped against the coffee maker. Jake, I'll send movers for the rest. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Kay? Don't make this harder than it has to be. Classic Kara, making her betrayal sound like a business decision I should accept gracefully. I opened my laptop and began typing. First, an email to Dean's wife, Marcy. I'd met her twice at company parties. Nice woman, elementary school teacher, completely devoted to her husband. She deserved to know what kind of man she'd married. The email was simple and direct. Mrs. Oliver, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I thought you should know about your husband's activities. I attached the photos and hit send. Next, I logged into the local wedding planning forum where Kara had been an active member for months, sharing photos of our venue, our menu choices, our carefully curated love story. The forum had 1,200 members, most of them connected to the city's social and business elite. I created a new post titled, "When the Bride Gets Cold Feet," and shared our story with screenshots of her breakup text, photos from the parking garage, and a timeline of her suspicious behavior over the past few months. I didn't name names, but I included enough details for anyone who knew us to connect the dots. The responses started immediately. Sympathy for me, outrage at her behavior, and most importantly, recognition. "Is this about Kara Mitchell from Hartwell & Associates?" one user asked. "I heard rumors about her and that tech guy." By midnight, the post had 83 comments and had been shared to 3 other local social media groups. My phone buzzed constantly, calls from Kara, from Dean, from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all. Tomorrow was supposed to be my wedding day. Instead, it would be the first day of a very different kind of celebration. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I woke up at 6 a.m. to the sound of my phone ringing, 43 missed calls overnight, most from Kara. The wedding forum post had exploded, 217 comments shared across every major social media platform in the city. Someone had even created a hashtag, Jaxer Venue of Vengeance. The local morning radio show was discussing it. I hadn't been awake long enough to decide whether hearing my personal disaster turned into commuter entertainment was funny or nauseating. So apparently there's this wedding that got canceled yesterday when the bride ran off with her ex, the host was saying, voice dripping with the kind of amused judgment that made radio gossip addictive. The whole story's all over social media. Ladies, if you're going to cheat, maybe don't do it the day before your wedding. Laughter from the co-hosts. A sound effect. Someone booing dramatically. I stared at the coffee machine like it might explain how my engagement turned into morning satire. It didn't. It just hissed and brewed like any other Sunday. I made coffee and checked my email with the numb discipline of someone following post-disaster protocol. Marcy Oliver had responded, "Thank you for telling me." I confronted Dean last night. He's staying at a hotel. My lawyer will be in touch with him Monday. I read it twice, letting the words settle. That was the thing about truth. Once it entered a room, it tended to keep breaking things until the place was unrecognizable. Perfect, one down. My phone rang again. Unknown number, but I knew the rhythm of her calls. I could almost hear the panic humming through the carrier signal. This time, I answered. "Jake, what have you done?" Kara's voice was strained, desperate, frayed, like fabric pulled too tight. In the background, I could hear office noise, muffled conversations, a copier, someone asking who brought donuts. "My boss is furious. The whole office is talking about it. You need to take down that post." "Good morning to you too, sweetheart. How was your evening at the Meridian?" Silence. Not confusion, not denial, calculation. Then, "It's not what you think." "Really?" I paced the kitchen slowly, one hand on the counter. "Because what I think is that you've been cheating on me for months with your married ex-boyfriend, and instead of having the decency to break up with me before humiliating me in front of 300 wedding guests, you decided to send a text message like you were canceling a dentist appointment. Jake, please, we can work this out. I made a mistake. The only mistake here is mine, for not seeing what you really are sooner. But don't worry, I'm a fast learner." I hung up, blocked her number, a quiet, final click. 20 minutes later, my best friend Eddie called. His voice carried that gravelly mix of amusement and concern he'd perfected during his years owning O'Malley's, a dive bar in the warehouse district where I'd spent half my Fridays losing at pool and winning at cynicism. "Brother, you've got the whole city talking," he said. "Half my customers are asking if I know you. The other half are asking if I know her. This is better than reality TV." "It's about to get better. I need a favor." Eddie had spent 15 years as a cop before trading badge and bureaucracy for neon lights and whiskey. He still had contacts everywhere, City Hall, law offices, the kind of places where files got misfiled and secrets got verified. More importantly, he understood that sometimes justice didn't wear a uniform. Sometimes it just needed a well-placed nudge. "What do you need?" "Information. I want to know everything about Dean Oliver's business dealings, his social connections, his weaknesses, and I want to know who else at Kara's firm knew about their affair." A brief silence. Not disapproval, just measurement. "You sure about this path, Jake? Revenge is a dish best served cold, but it's still poison." "They chose the menu, Eddie. I'm just deciding how it gets served." He exhaled. "All right. Give me a couple hours." By noon, I had my answers. Dean's startup, TechFlow Solutions, wasn't the success he'd bragged about. It was hemorrhaging money despite its glossy website and buzzword-filled pitch decks. His biggest client was Morrison Industries. No relation to me, just an unfortunate coincidence for them, and their contract was up for renewal next month. The company's CEO, Patricia Morrison, was a devout Catholic who'd recently donated $2 million to family values organizations. A fact that would matter very much if she discovered her golden consultant had been spending his Tuesdays and Thursdays committing the exact kind of sin her public image condemned. As I took another sip of cooling coffee, one truth crystallized. Some people thought betrayal was a private act, but they were wrong. Betrayal always had witnesses. I crafted an anonymous email to Patricia Morrison, including photos of Dean with Kara, details about his affair, and copies of social media posts where he'd bragged about his family values and commitment to marriage. I sent it from a temporary email account and copied 3 of her board members. For Kara, I had something more personal planned. My sister Sophie worked in IT for a downtown marketing firm. She'd been trying to get me to let her hack Kara's social media accounts for months, claiming she could expose all her fake posts and filtered photos. I'd always said no, but circumstances had changed. Finally, Sophie said when I called, "I've been waiting for you to come to your senses about that woman. Give me 2 hours." While Sophie worked her magic, I drove to my shop. Morrison Classic Restorations occupied a converted warehouse in the Arts District, surrounded by galleries and craft breweries that attracted the kind of people who appreciated authentic things. I'd built the business from nothing, starting with a single 1967 Mustang I'd restored in my garage and selling for enough profit to rent the space. The irony wasn't lost on me that I made my living bringing damaged things back to life, while my personal life had just been totaled beyond repair. I was working on a 1969 Camaro when Sophie called back. "Jake, you're going to love this. Your ex-fiancé has been very busy. I found private messages going back 4 months with Dean, but that's not the best part. She's also been messaging with 2 other guys, one from her yoga class and another from her firm. This woman's been running a whole operation. Send me everything." "Already in your email, but Jake, there's something else. She's been bad-mouthing you to everyone, calling you beneath her social level and saying she was only marrying you because you were safe and stable until something better came along." The wrench in my hand bent slightly from the pressure of my grip. Safe and stable. 2 years of my life reduced to a consolation prize. "There's more," Sophie continued. "She's been planning to leave you for weeks. She already put a deposit down on a new apartment downtown. The lease starts Monday." So the text message wasn't impulse. It was just the final step in a plan she'd been executing while I was working overtime to pay for our dream wedding. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Dean. We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Park at 8 p.m. Come alone." I laughed out loud. The idiot wanted to meet at the park where Kara and I had our first date. Either he had a sense of irony or no sense at all. I texted back, "See you there." But first, I had some preparations to make. Eddie arrived at my shop at 6 p.m. with a bottle of whiskey and a grin. So, what's the plan? Dean wants to meet me tonight. Probably thinks he can intimidate me or buy me off, but I've got a different agenda. I showed him the screenshots Sophie had sent. Messages where Kara called me a temporary placeholder and Dean responded with laughing emojis. Messages where they planned their hotel meetings around my work schedule. Messages where they joked about how clueless I was. "These 2 deserve each other," Eddie said, pouring whiskey into coffee mugs. "But they don't deserve to get away with this. They won't. By tomorrow morning, everyone they know will see exactly what kind of people they are." I opened my laptop and began creating a comprehensive timeline. Photos, screenshots, dates, locations. Everything documented and organized like a legal brief. Then I created accounts on every major social media platform and local forum, each with a variation of the same username, Justice for Jake. At 7:45 p.m., I drove to Riverside Park. Dean was already there, standing by the gazebo where Kara and I had shared our first kiss. He looked nervous, checking his phone every few seconds. I parked and walked over, taking my time. Let him sweat. "Jake," he said, extending his hand like we were meeting for a business lunch. "Thanks for coming." I ignored the handshake. "What do you want, Dean?" "Look, this whole situation got out of hand. Kara and it just happened. We didn't plan for it to go this far." "You didn't plan to get caught, you mean?" He had the grace to look embarrassed. "Fair enough. But the social media thing, the posts, sending photos to my wife, that needs to stop. You've made your point." "Have I?" Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you two have been making a fool of me for months while I worked my tail off to pay for a wedding to a woman who was treating me like a placeholder. Kara never meant to hurt you. Stop. I held up my hand. Don't insult my intelligence. I've seen the messages, Dean. All of them. I know exactly what she meant and what you both thought of me. His face went pale. What messages? Instead of answering, I pulled out my phone and opened the timeline I'd created. Funny thing about people who work in public relations and tech, you'd think they'd be smarter about digital security. I showed him screenshots of his conversations with Kara, including ones from that very afternoon where they'd strategized about how to manage the situation and minimize damage to their reputations. You can't share those, he said, his voice rising. That's private communication. Private? Like your marriage vows? Like my engagement to the woman you've been meeting at hotels for 4 months? Dean stepped closer, trying to loom over me. He had 3 inches on me, but I'd spent 15 years working with my hands while he'd spent them sitting behind a desk. I'm warning you, Jake. Take down the posts, delete the photos, and walk away, or this gets complicated. Complicated how? I have lawyers. Good ones. And I have connections in the city that you can't imagine. You're a mechanic from the wrong side of town. I can make your life very difficult. I smiled. You know what's funny, Dean? You just proved everything I've been saying about you. You think your money and your connections make you untouchable. You think you can destroy my relationship, humiliate me in front of everyone I know, and then threaten me into silence. I'm not threatening you. I'm offering you a way out of this mess with your dignity intact. My dignity? I laughed. That's rich, coming from a man who's been cheating on his wife with his ex-girlfriend while she was engaged to someone else. Tell me, what does your wife think about your definition of dignity? That hit home. His face flushed red. Marcy will forgive me. We'll work through this. But if you keep pushing, if you keep spreading lies about us... Lies. Everything I've shared is documented. Photos, messages, timestamps. The only lies here are the ones you've been telling your wife and the ones Kara's been telling me. Dean pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. This is harassment. Go ahead. I'll wait. I crossed my arms and leaned against the gazebo railing. While you're at it, maybe you should call Patricia Morrison too. I'm sure she'd love to hear from you right about now. The phone slipped from his hand. What did you do? What needed to be done? See, Dean, you made a critical error in judgment. You assumed I was some simple mechanic who'd roll over and take whatever you and Kara dished out. But here's the thing about people who work with their hands. We know how to fix things, and we know how to break them. I picked up his phone and handed it back to him. Your biggest client just learned about your character. Your wife knows about your affair. Your social media accounts are about to be flooded with very uncomfortable questions. And tomorrow, everyone at the country club, everyone at your networking events, everyone in your precious social circle will know exactly what kind of man you really are. You're insane. No, I'm thorough. There's a difference. Dean backed away from me, his confidence crumbling. This isn't over. You're right, it's not. Because tomorrow morning, I'm going to share every message you and Kara exchanged about me. Every joke, every insult, every plan you made behind my back, and then I'm going to sit back and watch your perfect little world collapse around you. He turned and walked quickly toward his car, nearly jogging by the time he reached it. I watched him drive away, then pulled out my phone and sent the first wave of posts to social media. The real war was just beginning. Sunday morning brought chaos. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since 5 a.m. with calls from reporters, friends, and strangers who'd seen the story spreading across social media. The wedding forum post had been shared over 1,000 times, and local news outlets were picking up the story. Jilted groom exposes cheating bride in social media revenge, read the headline on Channel 7's website. They'd interviewed 3 wedding industry professionals who all agreed that what Kara had done was unconscionable and a betrayal of everything marriage represents. I was drinking coffee in my garage, working on the Camaro's engine, when my sister Sophie arrived with donuts and updates. Jake, you've created a monster, she said, pulling up social media on her tablet. Look at this. The hashtag Tulver Venue of Vengeance was trending locally. People were sharing their own stories of wedding betrayals and relationship revenge. Someone had created a fake movie poster featuring my story. 3 different women had sent me direct messages offering to help you forget that awful woman. It gets better, Sophie continued. Kara's boss called an emergency meeting yesterday. Apparently having your personal drama become a public relations nightmare isn't great for business when you work in public relations. And Dean? TechFlow Solutions just lost their biggest client. Patricia Morrison's company issued a statement about maintaining partnerships with organizations that reflect our values. His startup is finished. I felt a satisfaction deeper than anything I'd experienced working on cars. There's something pure about mechanical problems. You diagnose the issue, you fix it, you move on. Personal problems are messier, but the principle is the same. Identify what's broken, remove the damaged parts, rebuild stronger. My phone rang. Eddie. Brother, you need to get down to O'Malley's, now. Why? Because your ex-fiancée is here, and she's drunk, and she's telling everyone who'll listen that you're a stalker and a psychopath. Also, she brought backup. I drove to the warehouse district faster than I should have. O'Malley's was packed for a Sunday afternoon, filled with the usual mix of off-duty cops, construction workers, and neighborhood regulars who treated Eddie's bar like a community center. Kara was at the far end of the bar, still wearing yesterday's clothes, gesturing wildly while talking to a man I recognized as her colleague from Hartwell and Associates. She looked like she hadn't slept, her perfect makeup smeared and her hair disheveled. She spotted me the moment I walked in. There he is, she shouted, loud enough for the entire bar to hear. The stalker. The man who's been harassing me and spreading lies about my private life. The bar went quiet. 30 pairs of eyes turned toward me, waiting to see how this would play out. I walked calmly to the bar and ordered a beer. Hey, Eddie, busy afternoon? Getting busier by the minute, he replied, sliding a bottle across the bar. Kara stumbled over, her colleague trailing behind her like an uncomfortable shadow. You think this is funny? You think destroying my career is some kind of joke? I think, I said, taking a sip of beer, that actions have consequences. Novel concept, I know. I made one mistake. One mistake? I turned to face her, and the raw hurt in my voice silenced the room. Kara, you didn't make one mistake. You made a choice. Every day for 4 months, you chose to lie to me. You chose to meet him at hotels while I was working overtime to pay for our wedding. You chose to mock me in text messages while I was picking out flowers and menu options and trying to create the perfect day for us. Her colleague stepped forward. Look, Jake, I understand you're upset, but this public humiliation campaign has to stop. Kara's a good person who made some poor decisions. She doesn't deserve this. Doesn't deserve this? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Tell me, what exactly does she deserve? A gold medal for creative betrayal? A trophy for most efficient relationship destruction? She deserves forgiveness. She deserves a chance to make things right. From who? From me? I'm not her priest or her therapist. I'm the guy she was going to promise to love and honor while she was planning her escape route. Kara grabbed my arm. Jake, please. I know I hurt you, but what you're doing is worse. You're trying to destroy my entire life. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. I'm not destroying anything, Kara. I'm just making sure people see what was already there. You destroyed your own life the moment you decided that lying to me was easier than being honest. But I love you. No. I gently removed her hand from my arm. You loved the idea of me. You loved having someone safe and stable while you figured out what you really wanted. But you never loved me enough to be faithful, and you never respected me enough to be honest. The bar was completely silent now. Even the jukebox had stopped playing. What do you want from me? She whispered. What will it take for you to forgive me? I finished my beer and set the bottle on the bar. I want you to understand something, Kara. This isn't about forgiveness. This is about consequences. You made choices, and now you get to live with the results. Just like I have to live with the result of trusting someone who didn't deserve it. I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and Kara? Next time you want to call someone a stalker, maybe don't do it in a bar full of people who watched me work 3 jobs to pay for a wedding to someone who was cheating on me. They tend to have strong opinions about that kind of thing. The bar erupted in murmurs and conversations as I left. I could hear Kara's voice rising in anger, but I didn't look back. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to meet. Tonight. Dean. I texted back, Riverside Park, 9 p.m. And Dean, bring your lawyer if you want. I'll bring my evidence. But first, I had one more stop to make. The Meridian Hotel was busier on Sunday evening, filled with business travelers and couples enjoying expensive dinners, the kind of crowd that dressed their loneliness in tailored suits and rented intimacy. I walked into the bar like I belonged there, ordered a scotch, and waited. The glass was chilled, the lighting low, the piano music soft enough to cover confessions. The bartender was a young guy with sleeve tattoos and the kind of smile that suggested he'd seen everything and refused to be shocked by any of it. His name tag read Marcus. He moved like a man who had listened to 1,000 stories he'd never repeat. Busy night? I asked, letting my voice blend into the background like another anonymous traveler. Always is. You staying at the hotel? No, just meeting someone. Actually, I'm curious. Do you remember a couple who used to come in here regularly? Attractive woman, blonde, usually with a guy in expensive suits? They'd sit in that corner booth. Marcus's eyes flicked to the far corner of the bar, a booth draped in shadows, perfectly designed for secrets, and then back to me. He leaned closer, voice dropping. Yeah, I remember them. Haven't seen them in a few days, though. Why? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo of Kara and Dean. There was a moment, a subtle tightening in his jaw, before he nodded. That's them. They were here every Tuesday and Thursday for months. Always paid cash, always left big tips. Seemed like they were trying to keep things quiet, you know? How quiet? Quiet enough that when the woman's fiancé called looking for her last week, I told him I'd never seen her before. The room felt suddenly smaller. The piano music sounded distant, like it came from another world entirely. Her fiancé called? I kept my tone even, though something sharp twisted in my chest. Yeah, seemed like a nice guy. Said he was worried about her, that she'd been working late a lot and he wanted to surprise her with flowers. I felt bad lying to him, but the woman had specifically asked us not to mention if anyone came looking for her. She tipped me $500 once, just for keeping my mouth shut. I nodded slowly, feeling the pieces click together in a pattern that was ugly and familiar. Kara wasn't just careless. She'd planned her deception with precision. She had built silence everywhere she went. I finished my scotch and left a 20 on the bar. Thanks, Marcus. You've been very helpful. He studied me, eyes narrowing. Hey, is everything okay? You're not the fiancé, are you? I smiled grimly. I was, but that was yesterday's problem. Outside the hotel, the night air felt colder than it should have. I called Sophie. The moment she answered, I could hear the tension in her breath. I need you to do one more thing for me. What now? She asked, voice cautious but loyal. I need you to find out everything you can about Kara's new apartment. Who's on the lease, when she signed it, how much she's paying, everything. There was a pause long enough for her to shape a warning. Jake, what are you planning? I'm planning to make sure the truth comes out, all of it. She didn't argue. She understood me too well for that. 20 minutes later, Sophie called back. Her voice was quieter this time. You're not going to like this. Tell me. The apartment lease is in both their names. Kara and Dean signed it 3 weeks ago. It's a luxury place downtown, 2 bedrooms, $3,000 a month. And Jake? They put down a 6-month deposit. 6 months, $18,000 in advance. Enough money to start a new life while she pretended our old one still mattered. For a long moment, I just stood there on the sidewalk, the hotel's revolving doors spinning behind me, strangers brushing past me as if the world hadn't just tilted. Everything made sense now. Her distance, her excuses, the sudden changes in her schedule. She hadn't stumbled into an affair. She had moved into it, deliberately, and she expected me to keep paying the bills while she built a future with someone else. Lights from passing taxis streaked across the pavement like broken promises. I finally exhaled. Thank you, Sophie, I said. This is exactly what I needed. Because truth wasn't just a weapon, it was evidence, and I was done fighting blind. So they'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months. While I was addressing wedding invitations and confirming catering details, they were signing leases and planning their new life together. I drove to Riverside Park early, wanting time to think before Dean arrived. The gazebo looked different in the evening light. Smaller somehow, less romantic than it had seemed 2 years ago when Kara and I had sat here planning our future. Dean arrived exactly at 9, this time accompanied by a woman in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase. Jake, he said, walking over with more confidence than he'd shown the night before. This is my attorney, Linda Walsh. We'd like to discuss a resolution to this situation. I stood up from the bench where I'd been sitting. What kind of resolution? Linda stepped forward. Mr. Morrison, my client is prepared to offer you compensation for the emotional distress you've experienced, in exchange for your agreement to cease all social media activity related to this matter and to refrain from any further contact with Mr. Oliver or Ms. Mitchell. How much compensation? $25,000, I laughed. You want to pay me $25,000 to shut up about the fact that your client destroyed my engagement by having an affair with my fiancé? We prefer to think of it as a mutual agreement to move forward constructively. Here's a counteroffer, I said, pulling out my phone. I'll consider stopping when Dean and Kara publicly apologize for what they did, when they reimburse me for every penny I spent on the wedding, and when they admit that they've been planning this betrayal for months. Dean shook his head. That's not going to happen. Then neither is your payoff. I opened my phone's camera app and started recording. Linda, are you aware that your client and his girlfriend signed a lease for a downtown apartment 3 weeks ago, while she was still engaged to me and he was still married to his wife? Linda's professional composure cracked slightly. How did you? I'm thorough. Are you also aware that they've been meeting at the Meridian Hotel every Tuesday and Thursday for 4 months, and that the staff there was instructed to lie to me if I ever came looking for her? Dean grabbed for my phone. Stop recording. I stepped back, keeping the camera rolling. Are you threatening me, Dean? Because that's going to look great in court when your wife's divorce attorney sees this video. Give me the phone. He lunged at me, and I sidestepped easily. Years of working on cars had given me quick reflexes and strong hands. When he stumbled past me, I didn't help him regain his balance. Dean! Linda shouted. Stop! He turned back toward me, his face red with anger and embarrassment. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you can destroy my life and just walk away? I'm not destroying your life, Dean. I'm just making sure people know who you really are. There's a difference. You're nobody. You're a mechanic from a neighborhood that doesn't even have a name. I could buy and sell you 10 times over. Maybe. But you can't buy back your reputation. You can't purchase integrity, and you definitely can't afford to undo what you've done to the people who trusted you. Linda was pulling on Dean's arm, trying to get him to leave. We're done here. Dean, we're leaving now. But Dean wasn't finished. This isn't over, Jake. I have resources you can't imagine. I can make your life hell. You already did that when you decided to have an affair with my fiancé. Everything else is just cleanup. They left, Linda practically dragging Dean to their car. I stopped recording and immediately uploaded the video to every social media platform I could access. Within an hour, Dean's meltdown was trending locally. The video had been viewed thousands of times, shared across dozens of platforms, and commented on by hundreds of people who were appalled by his entitled attitude and attempted assault. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Tomorrow, I was going to end this once and for all. Monday morning arrived with the subtlety of a car crash. I woke to find 17 missed calls from reporters and 43 text messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. The video of Dean's meltdown had gone viral, jumping from local social media to regional news outlets overnight. Channel 7 was calling it the revenge that broke the internet. A local radio station had started a call-in segment called Jake's Justice Hour, where listeners shared their own betrayal stories. Someone had created a GoFundMe page to help Jake start over that had already raised $8,000 from strangers. But the most important message was from Marcy Oliver. Jake, I saw the video. Thank you for showing me who I married. My lawyer says it will help with the divorce. Dean moved out yesterday. I hope you find peace. I was drinking coffee and reading through the social media responses when Sophie called. Jake, you need to see this. Kara's fighting back. She'd posted a long statement on her LinkedIn profile, positioning herself as the victim of a coordinated harassment campaign by an unstable ex-partner. She claimed I was obsessed and dangerous, and that she'd only broken off our engagement because she feared for her safety. The post was professionally written, full of corporate buzzwords about healing and moving forward. It had been shared by several of her colleagues and was gaining traction among people who didn't know the full story. She's trying to flip the narrative, Sophie said, making you look like the bad guy. Let her try. I have something better than a narrative. I have evidence. I spent the morning preparing for what I was calling the final presentation. Every screenshot, every photo, every documented lie, organized chronologically and backed up in multiple locations. I created a comprehensive timeline that showed exactly when Kara had made each decision to deceive me, from the first secret meeting with Dean to signing their apartment lease. Then I did something that surprised even me. I called Kara. She answered on the first ring. Jake, thank God. We need to talk. We do. Meet me at the Grand Metropolitan tonight at 7, the ballroom where our wedding was supposed to happen. Why there? Because that's where this story started, and that's where it's going to end. Come alone, Kara. No colleagues, no lawyers, no backup. Just you and me and the truth. Jake, I'm scared. The things people are saying online are nothing compared to what you did to me. 7 o'clock, Kara, don't be late. I hung up and immediately called the venue coordinator. Lila, this is Jake Morrison. I know this sounds strange, but I'd like to rent the ballroom for tonight. Just for a few hours. Jake, I've been following your story online. The whole wedding industry is talking about it. Are you sure you want to come back here? I'm sure. Can you make it happen? For you, after what that woman did, absolutely. No charge. The Grand Metropolitan's ballroom looked exactly the same as it had 4 days ago, except now the flowers were gone and the tables were stacked against the walls. The chandelier still cast the same warm light, but it felt different now, less romantic, more theatrical. I set up my laptop on the stage where the band was supposed to play, connected it to the venue's sound system, and tested the projection screen. Everything I needed to tell the complete story, displayed in high definition for an audience of one. Kara arrived at exactly 7 o'clock, wearing a black dress that made her look like she was attending a funeral. Maybe she was. "Jake," she said, walking slowly into the ballroom. "This is dramatic, even for you." "Sit down, Kara. Front row, center table. I have a presentation for you." She looked around the empty ballroom, then at me standing on the stage. "What is this?" "This is your reckoning." I clicked the first slide. A photo of us from 2 years ago, laughing at a restaurant, looking genuinely happy. Let's start at the beginning. Jake and Kara, a love story, or so I thought. The next slide showed our engagement photos, professional shots that had cost me a week's salary. The proposal. I spent 3 months planning it, saved for 6 months to buy the ring. You cried when I got down on one knee. Were those real tears, Kara, or were you already planning your exit strategy? Jake, please. No interruptions. You had your chance to tell the truth. Now it's my turn. I clicked through slides showing our wedding planning timeline, deposits I'd made, overtime hours I'd worked. Then I switched to screenshots of her messages with Dean, starting from 4 months ago. "This is where it gets interesting," I said, reading from the screen. Dean writes, "Can't wait to get you out of that suburban nightmare." You respond, "Just a few more months and I'll be free." Free, Kara. That's how you described leaving me. Her face was pale in the projection light. Those messages were taken out of context. Were they? Let's see. I clicked to the next slide. Here you are calling me a placeholder until something better comes along. Here's Dean asking if you're still pretending to be happy with the mechanic. And here's my personal favorite. You telling him that our wedding would be the perfect cover story for your affair because I'd be too busy with details to notice your absences. I walked to the edge of the stage, looking down at her. You used our wedding as a cover story for cheating on me. Do you understand how twisted that is? Tears were running down her face now, but I felt no sympathy. Jake, I never meant for it to go this far. It started as just talking, just catching up with an old friend. When did talking turn into hotel rooms? When did catching up turn into signing a lease together? When did old friendship turn into mocking the man who loved you? I clicked to the timeline showing when she'd signed the apartment lease, when she'd started lying about working late, when she'd begun planning her new life while I was planning our wedding. You want to know what the worst part is, Kara? It's not the cheating. It's not even the lying. It's that you made me complicit in my own humiliation. You let me work overtime to pay for a wedding you never intended to go through with. You let me invite my friends and family to celebrate a love that you'd already thrown away. You turned me into a fool, and you enjoyed every minute of it. She stood up from the table. I didn't enjoy it. I was confused. I was scared. You were calculating. Every choice you made was deliberate. Every lie you told was strategic. You're not a victim here, Kara. You're an architect. I clicked to the final slide, a photo of the empty ballroom where we stood now. This was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. Instead, it's the place where I finally understood who you really are. Not the woman I fell in love with, not the partner I thought I was building a life with, but someone who saw love as a transaction and loyalty as a weakness. The ballroom was quiet, except for the hum of the projector and the sound of Kara crying. What do you want from me, Jake? What will it take for you to stop? I turned off the projector and walked down from the stage. I don't want anything from you, Kara. I wanted honesty, but you chose deception. I wanted loyalty, but you chose betrayal. I wanted a partner, but you chose to be a stranger. I packed up my laptop and headed for the door. Jake, wait! I stopped, but didn't turn around. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am truly, deeply sorry for what I did to you. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your plan fell apart. You're sorry your reputation is ruined and your career is damaged and your perfect new life with Dean is complicated by messy things like consequences. I turned to face her one last time. But you're not sorry for betraying me. You're not sorry for lying to me. And you're not sorry for turning the love I gave you into a weapon against me. If you were sorry for those things, you would have stopped before it got this far. I left her standing alone in the ballroom where our wedding should have been, surrounded by empty tables and broken dreams. Outside, I sat in my truck for a moment, feeling something I hadn't experienced in days. Peace, not happiness, not satisfaction, but the quiet calm that comes from finally understanding a situation completely. My phone buzzed with a text from Eddie. "Brother, you need to see the news. Turn on Channel 7. I drove home and turned on the television. The lead story was about a local tech startup filing for bankruptcy after losing its major contracts. TechFlow Solutions was done, and Dean Oliver was facing multiple lawsuits from investors who claimed he'd misrepresented the company's financial position. The reporter interviewed Patricia Morrison, the CEO who'd pulled her company's contract. "We simply can't do business with people who don't share our values," she said. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them." My phone rang. It was Lila from the venue. "Jake, I hope you don't mind, but I recorded your presentation tonight. The security cameras were running, and the audio was crystal clear." "Why would you record it?" "Because what you said in there, about love and loyalty and consequences, that was something people need to hear. Would you mind if I shared it? I think it might help other people who've been through what you've been through." I thought about it for a moment. "Share it. Let people see what betrayal really looks like and what it really costs." "Jake, for what it's worth, I think you're going to be okay. Better than okay." After she hung up, I walked out to my garage and looked at the Camaro I'd been restoring. The engine was rebuilt, the bodywork was finished, and all that remained was the final assembly. Tomorrow, I'd put it all back together, better and stronger than it had been before. Some things, once broken, can't be repaired, but some things can be rebuilt into something entirely new. I was looking forward to finding out which category I belonged in. The video of my ballroom presentation went viral within hours. Lila had uploaded it to YouTube with the title, "The Speech Every Cheater Needs to Hear," and by Wednesday morning, it had been viewed over 2 million times. Comments poured in from around the world, people sharing their own stories of betrayal, expressing support, and praising what they called the most honest breakup speech ever recorded. The local media coverage intensified. I'd been invited on 3 talk shows, contacted by 2 book agents, and approached by a documentary filmmaker who wanted to tell the full story of modern relationship revenge. I declined them all. This wasn't about fame or profit. It was about justice. But Kara wasn't finished fighting. Thursday morning brought a registered letter from Hartwell & Associates' legal department, threatening to sue me for defamation, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They demanded that I remove all social media posts, delete the ballroom video, and issue a public apology, or face the full force of legal action. I called Eddie. "They're threatening to sue me." "On what grounds?" "Defamation, harassment, emotional distress, the usual corporate intimidation tactics." "Jake, everything you've shared is documented and true. They can't sue you for telling the truth." "They can try. And even if they lose, the legal fees could ruin me." "So what's your play?" I looked out the window of my shop at the city skyline, thinking about everything that had happened in the past week. I'm going to end this once and for all. That afternoon, I drove to Hartwell & Associates' downtown office. The building was all glass and chrome, the kind of place designed to intimidate visitors and impress clients. I walked into the lobby wearing my best jeans and a clean work shirt, looking exactly like what I was, a mechanic who belonged somewhere else. The receptionist looked at me like I might be delivering something. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Kara Mitchell. Tell her Jake Morrison is here." Her eyes widened with recognition. "You're... Oh my. Let me call upstairs." 5 minutes later, Kara emerged from the elevator looking professional and composed, but I could see the strain around her eyes. She'd aged years in the past week. "Jake, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk, privately." She led me to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "If this is about the legal letter..." "It's not. Sit down, Kara." She sat across from me at the polished conference table, her hands folded in front of her like she was conducting a business meeting. "I want you to understand something," I said. "This war you're trying to start with lawyers and threats, you can't win it. Every document I've shared is real. Every screenshot is authentic. Every timeline is accurate. You can sue me, but all you'll do is give me a legal platform to present even more evidence of what you did." "Jake, the video from the ballroom. People are calling me horrible names. I can't go anywhere without being recognized. My career is destroyed." "Your career is destroyed because you destroyed it. You're a public relations professional who created a public relations nightmare for yourself. The irony is almost poetic." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "What do you want? Money? I'll pay you whatever you need to make this stop." "I don't want your money. I want you to understand that actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are permanent. So you're going to ruin my life forever. Is that your plan?" I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the street below. I'm not ruining your life, Kara. Your life is exactly what you made it. You chose deception over honesty. You chose betrayal over loyalty. You chose to hurt someone who loved you rather than have a difficult conversation about what you really wanted. I turned back to face her. The only thing I did was make sure people could see your choices clearly. But why? Why couldn't you just let me go quietly? Why did you have to make it so public? Because you didn't let me go quietly. You humiliated me in front of everyone we knew. You made me look like a fool who couldn't see what was happening in his own relationship. You turned our love story into a joke and our wedding into a punchline. I sat back down across from her. You want to know the truth, Kara? I would have let you go if you'd come to me 6 months ago and said you weren't happy, if you'd been honest about your feelings for Dean, if you'd given me the respect of a real conversation instead of a text message. I would have been hurt, but I would have let you go. Tears were running down her face again. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. So you decided not to tell me at all. You decided to lie and cheat and plan your escape while I was planning our future. You decided that my feelings didn't matter as long as you got what you wanted. I never meant to hurt you. Yes, you did. Maybe not consciously, but you chose to hurt me rather than face an uncomfortable truth. Every time you met Dean at a hotel, every time you lied about working late, every time you let me make wedding plans while you made escape plans, you chose to hurt me. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. Do you know what this is? She looked at the phone. I don't understand. It's the delete button, one tap, and every post disappears. Every video gets removed. Every piece of evidence vanishes. Your reputation gets a chance to recover. Your career gets a second chance, and your new life with Dean can start fresh. Her eyes lit up with hope. You'll delete everything? I'll delete everything. But first, you're going to do something for me. Anything, name it. I set the phone on the table between us. You're going to tell the truth, right here, right now, on video. You're going to explain exactly what you did, why you did it, and what it cost both of us. No corporate speak, no victim narrative, no blame shifting, just the truth. Jake, I can't. Then neither can I. I picked up the phone. The posts stay up, the video keeps spreading, and your legal threats become public record. Your choice, Kara. She stared at the phone for a long moment, then looked up at me. If I do this, you'll really delete everything? I'll delete everything I control. But Kara, you need to understand. The story is bigger than me now. Other people have shared it, commented on it, built on it. I can remove my part, but I can't erase what's already out there. But you'll try? I'll delete every post I made, every video I uploaded, every piece of evidence I shared. The rest is up to the internet. She took a deep breath. Okay, I'll do it. I started recording. State your name and the date. Kara Mitchell, October 15th. Tell me what you did. She looked directly into the camera. There was no blinking, no nervous shifting, no attempt to soften what she was about to say. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled, just enough that someone who knew her well would notice. I cheated on my fiancé with my ex-boyfriend for 4 months before our wedding. I lied about where I was going and what I was doing. I let Jake plan and pay for a wedding that I never intended to go through with. I mocked him in private messages and called him names behind his back. I signed a lease for an apartment with my lover while I was still engaged to Jake. And when I finally ended our relationship, I did it with a text message the day before our wedding. For a moment, neither of us spoke. It felt like the air itself recoiled. Why did you do it? I asked, keeping my voice level. Because I was selfish. Because I wanted the security of my relationship with Jake and the excitement of my affair with Dean. Because I convinced myself that what Jake didn't know wouldn't hurt him. Because I was a coward who chose deception over honesty. The words came faster now, like she was ripping bandages off wounds she had hidden for years. I could see the regret settling across her face, a slow and heavy shadow. What did it cost? It cost Jake 2 years of his life and $20,000 in wedding expenses. It cost him his trust in people and his faith in love. It cost me my integrity, my reputation, and any chance at real happiness. It cost Dean his marriage and his business. It hurt everyone who cared about us. Her voice cracked. Not dramatically, not as if she wanted pity, but in the quiet way a person sounds after finally realizing the damage they've done. Do you regret it? I regret everything. I regret the lying, the cheating, the betrayal. I regret hurting someone who loved me. I regret destroying something good because I was too immature to appreciate what I had. Outside the conference room window, sunlight slid across the floor, long and golden, as if the day outside didn't know that something in here was breaking and being rebuilt all at once. Is there anything else you want to say? She looked directly into the camera again. She didn't hide from it this time. Jake, I'm sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Not sorry for the consequences, but truly sorry for betraying you. You deserved honesty and loyalty and respect, and I gave you lies and betrayal and humiliation instead. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I understand what I did was wrong. I stopped recording. There, I did it. Now delete everything. Her voice had lost that earlier composure. She was tired, and I could see it now, the sleepless nights, the shame, the weight she still carried. I opened my social media accounts and began deleting posts. One by one, the timeline disappeared, the photos, the screenshots, the videos, all of it removed from my profiles. It took 20 minutes to undo a week's worth of digital warfare, though we both knew the internet never truly forgets. It's done, I said, showing her the empty accounts. Thank you. I stood up to leave, then paused at the door. Kara? The video I just recorded, I'm not going to post it. It's for me, so I never forget what this conversation sounded like. But if you ever try to rewrite this story, if you ever try to make yourself the victim again, I'll share it with the world. Her eyes lowered. I understand. I hope you do. And I hope you learn something from this. Not about getting caught, but about being honest. About treating people with respect. About understanding that love isn't a game and loyalty isn't a weakness. I left her sitting in the conference room, shoulders slumped, fingers tangled together like she was trying to hold on to something that no longer existed. I walked out of the building into the afternoon sunlight. My phone was already buzzing with notifications, people asking why the posts had disappeared, reporters wanting statements, friends checking to make sure I was okay. I turned off the phone and drove to my shop, the only place that had felt like home lately. The Camaro was waiting, fully restored and ready for its first drive. I'd spent months rebuilding every system, replacing every worn part, making it better than it had been when it rolled off the assembly line 50 years ago. Some nights I stayed long after midnight, hands black with grease, because fixing steel and bolts was easier than fixing a heart. I started the engine. It purred like a contented cat, smooth, powerful, and ready for whatever road lay ahead. The vibration traveled through the steering wheel into my fingertips, a physical reminder that some things, with time and work, can be made whole again. Some things can't be repaired once they're broken, but some things can be rebuilt into something stronger, something better, something that lasts. I drove the Camaro out of the garage and into the rest of my life, leaving the past in the rearview mirror where it belonged. The sky ahead was wide and open, and for the first time in months, breathing didn't feel like lifting a boulder. The war was over. I had won.